Guten Tag, moin moin und hallo bei Crowd Gaming. Epischer Survival Horror von EA, das kann nur Dead Space 3 sein, aber manch ein Fan hat so ein bisschen die Sorge, dass der dritte Teil des Franchises ein bisschen soft sein könnte und der Horror nicht mehr stattfindet. Warum das nicht so ist, das klären wir im Interview zu Dead Space 3 jetzt auf Crowd Gaming. With Jesse from Dead Space 3. So what are you doing with the Dead Space franchise?
Well, we're taking Isaac on a whole new horrific adventure and lots of new environments with new characters and in a traditional Dead Space story arc.
So we're telling the story of Isaac again, or we're expanding that story. How tight is this storyline tied into the first two installments?
It's very woven in. It's a progression of the Dead Space 2 storyline. A few months in Isaac's future. Isaac's drafted in very much against his will to help locate Ellie Langford, who's also gone searching for the source of the marker signal. And through his trip with a new set of characters, he happens upon a lost flotilla in space that takes him back 200 years to the lost colony and an excavation operation on the planet Tau Volantis. And that allowed us to expand not only the story, the characters, the motivation for bringing Isaac back into the necromorph infestation, but also allowed us to explore new environments. We have lots of lost spaceships for interior exploration, but we built huge open zero-G spaces. Given that these ships are deprecated, they're in low or no power states, Isaac has to scavenge, and scavenge now becomes the new resource gathering economy in Dead Space 3. And through our weapon bench, we're now allowing players to really hammer into Isaac's engineering background and construct the tools as well as the resources like health and stasis and ammo packs that are going to help him overcome bigger and greater, more horrific challenges.
So with a new weapon bench, there are basically 8 billion possibilities for weapons. Do you expect like the ultra hardcore grinders to spend hours and hours looking for items and constructing new weapons to find the ultimate weapon to kick some ass?
Absolutely. The opportunities are nearly endless. The resource system is going to allow people to go pretty deep. And there's a lot of assistive devices, some of which we're not talking about here today, that even take that a bit further. So the metagame that we were able to create, I mean, just by natural extension of this sort of system, is pretty complex. And while we keep it high level for a lot of people who just want to play quickly, we have methods, we have typical game progression in our single-player campaign. We have traditional DS2 weapons, but we've just basically taken and given the interface that we were able to create that's really supported by the fiction. If you go back 200 years in Isaac's future, those people didn't have the same technologies. They didn't have a suit store and a credit system to be able to buy things. If you go to a frozen planet, there's not a store you check into and exchange credits for goods. So scavenging became the way we really set this setting, the mood of the space and the time that it existed in, and then really just rely on Isaac's engineering talent to carry the player through that experience. And for us, that's one of the biggest evolutions in Dead Space 3 is finally bringing a game mechanic and the player to a place where Isaac's engineering roots are really what help them survive.
So in the demo we played recently, or on this Gamescom, Isaac is very much the man in control. He is like leading the team, he's exploring, he's going into the ship, and that is quite unlike most of the parts we've seen in Dead Space 1 and 2, where he was totally out of control, everything goes nuts around him. Will this return in Dead Space 3?
You know, it's a great question because Dead Space 1, he was very much surprised. He was sent to the Ishimura as a maintenance man, so very out of place, wrong tools for the job, and you know he overcame it. In Dead Space 2, a lot of that trauma had caused him dementia, so he was facing his own issues with dealing with his own interior psyche. And in Dead Space 3, we're gonna come up against Isaac as very much a man on the edge, if you will, rehabilitating from that experience and very unwilling to enter it again. However, he's now wiser and more experienced. He's now being thrust into a situation that he actually can control and can be a little more aware and adaptable. And the weapons system, the scavenging system is one of those aspects where he's now able to actually take the power back.
So we've got this iconic quote of Isaac we hear in the trailers, oh no, it's happening again. So we can expect new things, but how true are you to the series still with the third installment?
Very true. You know, it's a character and a fiction that we love. We love to evolve it. There's so much new stuff happening in Dead Space 3, but staying true to what makes the game great is a huge emphasis of ours in design. And a lot of that comes from the methodical elements of design, the pacing, the progression, the NPC strengths and abilities, and the player's ability to be at the right place at that moment in the story, to feel like they are overcoming things. They are also challenged by things. So we're not looking to undermine by just being all out, toe-to-toe shooter fest. It's really still harnessing that pacing and that storytelling elements that Visceral Games is so well known for, but giving the players much more depth and much more ability to meet higher, bigger and bigger challenges.
So with the game still being a survival horror game, we must have seen every scare tactic there is in the endless hours of the previous two games. How do you still remain that sense of suspension and still shock the player in the night so that he cries in his chair?
It's something we have fun with every day, let me tell you. It's typical tropes of horror have all been done, and you know, horror movies, you've seen the same scene 100 times, and you know, for a gaming experience, you really want to vary it. You want to change it. You know, the environments. One of the cool things about going to a planet surface was we locked in on a snowy planet, ice, blizzards. Rocky cliffs, you know, the environment becomes the horrific hazard. And sometimes elements like this create the anti-scare tactics. So building the tension, putting players just in an uncomfortable situation, you know, really just making things feel ominous and foreboding, and building on the foreboding is as a powerful a tactic as just throwing somebody out of a vent and a big scream and a big moment. So audio for us and environment really set the stage for how we build upon that foreboding.
As for creating the perfect moment of suspension, I could imagine there is some sort of contest between the internal teams, like who is having more fun scaring the shit out of the player, the visual team or the sound team? I mean, there must be some sort of competition between them.
I'll tell you what, it's really, boy, audio wins a lot of awards in this game. I mean, they are BAFTA winners, multiple nominees. They win best of everything and nominated best of everything. And when you put yourself in that situation, you know, audio could probably do it all. Especially here at Gamescom, we put everybody into headphones, and the intimacy that creates with the audio design and the audio designers who have such a good time, I think, complementing the gameplay. Isaac could be walking down an empty hall, but what you're doing with that sound design could bring it all home. And I think those guys have a great time putting the final touches on a lot of those atmospheric elements.
All right, with Dead Space 3, we're introduced to a cooperative gameplay. But the Dead Space series up until now was very much about surviving alone. You do not know where you are, you do not know where to go, and a scary monster could come around an elevator anytime. How does that fit into cooperative gameplay where I can lean to a shoulder and cry?
Well,
sorry.
There's no crying in Dead Space. But we do like to make everybody feel like that. There's two things that co-op's really bringing to it, and one is relieving some of the tension and the fear and the foreboding that unfortunately a lot of players keep themselves away from. Even people on the team admit that when they're done with the game and they go home at night and play the final thing in a box, with the audio especially, they find themselves unable to really put themselves through it. And it's an amazing experience or an example for us to really key into and say, well, how can we make it a little less foreboding for people to get in and appreciate what the team has spent so long creating. We really want everybody to see it and witness it and have fun with it. And we introduce the other character as a way to really help knock down that wall and really help feel like, okay, I can deal with it because I've got somebody there with me helping. You know, it's better to move a couch with a friend than it is to try to do it yourself. But given that, the flip side to that is this is still a single-player game. It is still a single-player story, and it is still Dead Space for all that you love Dead Space 1 and 2 for. It's just amped up. It's just bigger. It's just more of the good stuff, and the co-op is icing on that cake. Because what we found is playing co-op now, it's basically taking all the great fun of Dead Space and having your buddy there that you can have all that experience with. And we've been having a tremendous time in the office, yelling at each other, watch out over there, he's behind you, I'll back you up, okay, I just dropped ammo, get that health. And it's because it's a survival game, you're surviving together. There's a lot of teamwork in it, and it's amazing. So, you know, it's been one of the big surprise facts in the development is that how much fun you see the team have picking up co-op and working together to beat the hell out of the terror.
So one last question to tie into the fact that players are stopping playing because it's too scary. Are you guys worried not to make that game too scary because it would make too many players stop playing?
It's, you know, it's a huge balance. DS1 had that issue and DS2 still have that issue. We still hear it, even from people that built the game, and it's an amazing fact of those sorts of things. You know, people after a long day at the office, or kids, or what have you, want to relax. Dead Space is not a relaxing experience for everybody, and we really want to try to pave the road to a little more exposure to our product and a little more entertainment from people.
I mean, the guys in storytelling must go like, oh yes, we did it, and the guys in management must be like, oh no, what have we done? Is there a tension?
It's yeah, well, you know, and I'm not sure if we could say we've ever taken it too far yet. There's always been over 100 ways for our hero to die, and it's one of my favorite features. And Dead Space 3 offers even more ways for Isaac to die. And it's one of the things we have a good time at the office doing is figuring out how to kill Isaac. And that's it to me. I mean, it's I don't think we've gone too far. We haven't found the edge. The eye poke, I think, is one of the most horrific things noted in gaming that really resonates with people. And again, we're looking at ways to really bring something like that back multiple times in Dead Space 3.
Awesome. Thank you for all the answers and insights. I think we're out, and bye-bye.